Good evening. Welcome to .programming.blogspot.com, uh, or you can say .programming.com is my website. So today I'm talking about the data constraints. All business of the words can business data being in gathered, stored, and analysis business determine a set of business rules that must be applied to their data pair tools being stored in the database table, ensuring integrity. So data constraint. What is a data constraint? Constraints is a rule or business rules. It's a business rule. Okay. You can define constraint. Constraint is a business rule which is applied on the columns whose take datas, okay, which are applied on data being inserted, or you can stored in a table. Are called constraints. Okay, it's a business rules which are applied on the data being stored in a table are called constraints. To understand the more about the data constraints and business rules are completing system. Business rules are completely system dependent. Okay, there are some features of the data constraints, or you can say some properties of the data constraints. First one is business rules are completely system dependent, depends on the system, also different for each system. Like business rule different for saving bank system. Yes, okay. Suppose I have a bank system, so I want to declare the sentence business rules are completely system dependent, also different for each system. Here I have many systems in which we can apply different types of rules or constraints, and each constraints are separately defined. Business rules different for saving bank account, business rules different for inventory system, business rules different for personal management system. All R3s contain different types of rules. 3 system, 3 business rules, different constraints. Okay, The another characteristics is constraints. To be attached attached to a table column. Okay, and the constraint means the primary key, foreign key is attached with the only columns. So constraints to be attached to the table column via SQL syntax. Okay, like insert, update, delete, you can say, or table itself. Okay, constraints are applied on the table column or table itself. Business rule, or you can say constraints, are applied, or you can say business rules depend on the system. Not system is depend on business rules. Business rules depend on system, and for each system define separate business rules. So take another slides. Sorry. Let's to check example. I have a table ID, name and address. I have a table with the three columns, that is ID. I can say that I can tell you that constraint is applied on table column. So ID is a constraint is applied on the ID column. So primary key column. Okay, this is the primary key column. So constraint is applied on table column or table itself. Again I clear it. Constraints are system dependent. It means each system have a separate constraints. Later I will discuss on this topic. It not take and hold duplicate a primary key column. It not take and hold duplicate value. So rules are applied here. AB. Again, when we insert the single one in the ID column, then generate the error message. Here is an error. Okay, it's not valid. So rule is applied on with the ID column. That is the business rule which is applied on the ID column. So duplicate value are not allowed. That is the rule and that is the constraint. So SQL engine, or you can say Oracle engine, check the data being entered into a table column against the data constraints. Okay, SQL engine check the data being entered into the table column against data constraints. So id column is set primary key column, so engine check that is duplicate value entered or not. If you should not consider id as a primary key column, then SQL does not check the duplicate values. So SQL engine check the data being entered into the table column against the data constraint. It if the data pass this check, it is stored into the table. Okay, if the data pass this comparison, you can say checking or you can say quality, then stored into that table, otherwise not. It is stored into the table column, else the data is not, or you can say data is rejected. Okay, so the column is rejected duplicate value, so fail condition here. Okay.